Oh my god. This is a video that I did not want to make, but my the philosopher in me is forced to. Um as some of you might know, Cameron Petrusky of Capturing Christianity recently posted a video that to me I was really surprised by. I didn't think he would ever do this. I sincerely thought Cameron was better than this. Um and let's just say there's a lot of problems. Now, luckily, Joe Schmid of Majesty of Reason did a really, really good video in response to Cameron's points. But I'm here to present an alternative perspective. So what he said there stands on his own merits. What I'm going to say here, though, is something that I think is just adds on to the problems that Joe pointed out. And it's going to be very brief, or I guess definitely not as long as Joe's critiques of Cameron. But what I can say as someone that has studied uh, the question of God's existence for a few years now in detail, someone that I can now say that I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy, so I have some level of credentials to back this up. Um, I think what Cameron has done is he's basically shoot himself in the foot. Essentially, he has now put himself in a position that is very shows high disrespect, not just to the people that he's talking against or the people that he thinks are not to be taken seriously, but also shoots people, even theists, that takes atheism seriously, such as myself. The reason why I say this is because there is one individual that I would not be where I'm at without him. So, Sebastian Montinos of Naturalism Next, um, a few years ago, wrote a very, very long blog post defending why he's an atheist. And the thing about that is that blog post set the stage for me to write my own book. Okay. This book that I have in my hand right now literally would not exist if I didn't take atheism seriously. Okay. It wouldn't be here. All right. Um so why do I bring this up? Well, here's the problem of what Cameron's doing. So what he's doing is he is pushing away an entire tradition of analytic philosophy. A tradition that has contributed to the philosophy of religion more generally. Okay. Why do I say this? You know, because I say this because the way that I view philosophy of religion is not, this battle of, oh, my team's better than yours, oh, I don't take you seriously, that sort of thing. Okay. Now, if Cameron just came out and said, hey, I don't agree. I think atheism is highly implausible. I don't think it's a true theory, right? Or whatever. That's fine. Okay. That's, people have their opinions on that. But if you're going to say that an entire philosophical tradition is to quote unquote not be taken seriously, well, what you're basically doing is you're excluding that group of individuals, whatever they might be, to basically not, have a seat on the table. Why is that a problem? Well, the problem with that is when you exclude a very rich, analytic tradition, you are basically, how can I phrase it? Well, you are quite literally stopping philosophical progress, or at least highly slowing it down. Okay, maybe not completely stopping it, but you are certainly making the dialectic not move forward in a very healthy way. Now, why is that a problem? Well, that's a problem because the way that we have come up with our best arguments, whether it's for or against God, our best models of theism, I guess you could say just philosophy, religion in general, is because of the dialectic. It's because we take each other seriously. That's the reason why we have very sophisticated arguments on both sides. Okay. Is because we actually do take each other seriously. We might disagree. Okay. I'm going to certainly disagree with Sebastian on a lot of things. But I will never be the person to say, "Oh, I don't take, Sebastian serious." I would never say that to Sebastian because that my book would not exist without him. I would never say that to any, well-informed, atheist philosopher. Let me just, show you, I guess, some of the, works that works that wouldn't exist. Like pretty much most of the 99% of the books or the literature that you find in philosophy, religion, or philosophy in general is because of the dialectic, because philosophers take each other seriously, right? You don't just be like, oh, I'm not going to, um, no one says that. No one goes, oh, I'm just not going to take you seriously. Like, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. If you do that, you're stopping the dialectic. You're stopping progress. Okay, and that's a problem. Now, I bring these books up. So there's a book called Is There a God? Graham Oppy and Kenneth Pearce. So this book wouldn't exist if people didn't take each other seriously. And of course, this book wouldn't exist. Now, why do I bring this book up? Well, actually, if you actually understand Graham Oppy's argument in that book, you would know that what Cameron's saying is just completely false. Because if you were to take limited theism, as Cameron wants to describe, Oppy's arguments would still apply even against that. Okay. Now, I'm not going to explain why, but essentially, right, on Graham Oppy's meta-argument or cumulative argument against theism, the basic idea is that naturalism posits less, right? Theism posits more, posits, extra entities. And as long as naturalism can explain everything that theism does, then it's going to win, right? In fact, if you read his book, his first book, you'll see that he actually doesn't even take, omnitheism into account until the second half. So he's mainly going after deism in the first part. And by the way, that would also apply to limited theism. But so that's that's just the first thing, which is like there are ways you could get around. There are, atheistic arguments that would attack all forms of theism, including limited forms of theism. And of course, you could argue, as Joe did, that limited forms of theism face other problems, and that, if you think that there are good objections against limited theism, then you should certainly think you should consider to take that seriously. That's fine. And I'm not here, again, I completely agree with what Joe said. And so there's not really much I could add in terms of any kind of philosophical objection that I might have against Cameron. But my objection against Cameron is more of a social sort of objection. Just understanding the fact that because we take each other seriously, we're able to make progress in the philosophy of religion. Okay. So here's one way to really think about it, a good way to think about it. So, in a sense, right, theism and atheism, or naturalism, whatever model of atheism you have, right, because there's different variations of that, you know, might be there. Think of them as different models of reality, and then you have different philosophers defending those models, right? It's no different than when a physicist comes along and has, like, a model of physics, right? Like, there's string theory versus loop quantum gravity, right, when it comes to theoretical physics. And then you have people on both sides arguing for the position. But notice how it's not like you have a string theorist that says, "Oh, I don't take loop quantum gravity seriously." They do. Okay, again, they might not agree with loop quantum gravity as a string theorist, but they're certainly going to take it seriously, right? Because it helps them to refine their own models and their own understanding, right? The same thing applies to evolutionary biology. Same thing applies to history, right? There's always this constant dialectic. The whole reason why we can make progress in the first place is because we take each other seriously despite our disagreements. Okay? That's how we make progress. So if you're going to say that, oh, I'm not going to take, atheism seriously, or because really what you're attacking is you're attacking a philosophical tradition, analytic atheism, right? It has a lot of thinkers behind it, like J.L. Mackie, Graham Oppie, right? Paul Draper, a lot of them. I'm not going to mention all of them because, people that watch my videos are probably aware of a lot of them. But what I'm trying to say, really, is that you know, the best of theism, you could say, comes out of me taking atheists seriously because I take into account their objections they might have, and then I can modify my own position or maybe come up with some different arguments, right? But notice how I would never be able to, like, present those better arguments without their input, without their feedback, without their criticism, right? Same thing applies in reverse, right? Um, a lot of atheists wouldn't have very sophisticated arguments or sophisticated atheist worldview, whatever you might call it, without the criticisms from the theists, such as myself or, Tim Howard of Dogmatic Mastery, or, I would also include Cameron in there as well, despite, you know, what I'm saying about him now. But my point is simply that it's only because we take each other seriously that we can actually move the dialectic forward. We can make philosophical progress. Um, that we can actually, come, maybe at some point come to some divergence or convergence, I should say, not divergence. I mispronounced there, but some kind of convergence on the ultimate nature of reality, right? Um, with that in mind, right, when we take that into account, when we take into account that, a precursor for us to make philosophical progress is that we do take each other seriously. What Cameron is doing is he's essentially cutting that off. He's saying, "Oh, I'm not going to take, you know, the other side seriously." And what that does is it sort of creates this hostile kind of thing. Now, I don't think that's what Cameron is intending to do, right? I think there are certainly charitable interpretations of what Cameron is trying to say when he says, "Oh, I don't take, atheism seriously." Right? I mean, I think we can all reach a threshold where it might be reasonable to say, "Hey, I'm not going to take this thing seriously." For example, I think, you know, we shouldn't take new atheism seriously. Why shouldn't we take new atheism seriously? Well, the reason why we shouldn't take it seriously is because it doesn't move the dialectic forward. Okay. There isn't really any wiggle room for new atheists to really contribute to the philosophical discussion. Right. So, I don't take new atheism seriously, but the reason why I don't take them seriously is not because they have, bad arguments. I mean, they might, and a lot of them do. But the reason why I don't take new atheism seriously is because it doesn't contribute to the dialectic. The problem, though, is that that's not the case for atheism more generally. Okay. So I cannot just say, oh, atheism, as in the atheist analytic tradition, I can't take that seriously. I can't say that. And the reason why I can't say that is because my own work wouldn't exist without the, back and forth I've had with atheists on these topics and the feedback I've gotten from them and the conversations that I've had with them. So, that's all I really have to say on this. But I am quite convinced at this point that theists should take atheism seriously, not because you necessarily have to agree with atheists regarding God's existence. But the reason why you should take atheists seriously is because, well, they might just help your theism get better. Because it certainly has for me. Anyways, that's all I have to say. God bless.